Good morning. This is Kathy for Getting Chatty with Kathy, and I want to thank you all for joining me today. I have to say, now that we're into summer, I am very grateful for it. The sun was shining this weekend, and it was like warm, and I was just like, So, we have a very interesting guest here today. My husband actually recommended her for the show. Her name's Mary Frances, and she has a very interesting business as a side business that I thought all of us could hear about and understand why she's doing it. So, hello, how are you?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
I can't complain. Can't complain. Thank you so much for coming today and telling us about what you do.
Well, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Cool. It's always fun coming to like a studio and like seeing what's behind the like radio station, I guess.
It makes it so formal.
Yeah. Well, now that you see it, you're like, oh. I'm excited though that we're going to Access Communication, and it'll be like one really posh studio I hear that we'll be able to like go in and record. So we'll have you again and you can compare.
That sounds good to me. Yeah,
Okay.
I can go do that.
Okay, good. So why did Angus think that you would be a good person on the show?
I don't know. Maybe I'll have to pay Angus for that one. So, I started a cool business about 3 years ago, but I kind of started before that. So I became a certified coach, I would say 7 years ago. And I like doing the coaching one-on-one, but I had another passion, which is horses. So I've had horses most of my life, and then I found this course that brought the two together. So how can I help people and with working with my horses and do the two together?
Oh, wow.
So 3 years ago, I went through a certification, which is called EAL, so Equine Assisted Learning.
Okay.
And then from there, I kind of build my own courses on how do I help mostly women. I mostly work with women. How do I help them find their own path? The cool thing is I don't do much of the work. My horses do 90% of the work. So all I do really is translate what my horses are telling the participant in my clinic. So those two things together really brought me a lot of joy. And it was, but it was seeing people leave after 2 days of working with me and my horses, see them leave either with more confidence or just feeling their cups got refilled. And then a couple of years after that, so about a year and a half later, I was like, I want to know a little bit more about Enneagrams. So my daughters introduced me to Enneagrams, and so now I incorporated my Enneagrams. So I have the coaching, the horses, and my Enneagrams. And with those three things, I build pretty cool sessions for people to get a better understanding of who they are, what they want, and I call it my business. So
I love this. So before we get into the details of that, because I really want to hear more about it, I want to know the why behind you getting there. Like, so how did that come to be?
So if the why, 20 years ago, I was paralyzed. I had what we call Guillain-Barré syndrome, so GBS, and it was probably the biggest gift I ever gotten. It got me a chance to reflect on who I was, what I wanted. I got to do my own, figure out my path. And from there, I knew that I wanted to help more people find their path and be able to figure out what they want out of life. So that's kind of where my curiosity to start helping people or working with people came from. And then fast forward to 20 years later, I kind of evolved and got all of the little together. It takes sometimes time to find your passion, and sometimes how do you take that passion to the market or help other people. Or so I would say it started 20 years ago where I was like, I want to do more. I want to help people find their path, because not everybody gets to spend 6 months at Wascana Rehab to figure out how to walk again. We don't always have that chance, and we're busy on the day-to-day. So when I bring people into my clinics and we spend 2 days together, they really have a chance to reflect on what do they want, and just to, so I call my business Reflection Pathways. So it's reflecting on what you want, what has happened, and then what path do you want for yourself. And that's always been the premise for my business, or what I've wanted to do. So it kind of came from that.
I like that. So it's like a lived experience that brought you there.
Yep.
Interesting. So what type of person usually finds you?
I mostly work with women and young women. So it's been a lot of the worth, like people kind of referring people that have come to the clinic and said, "Hey, this is would be good for so and so." Um, it's I have not done a lot of advertising for it. A lot of time people want to know the price and how much is it going to cost. It's not a cheap venue. I mean, I have
Right.
horses. One of the
Horses aren't
things though,
cheap.
Kathy, is that I charge a fee, but I also have given donation because if people need to come to the clinic and this is going to help them, I'm more about helping the people. Like this has
Yeah.
never been about
Making a lot of money.
no, it's never been about the money. It's been about helping people. So I've worked a lot with women that are professional women
Okay.
that are managing their career, their kids, expectation.
Yeah.
That sometimes they're feeling a little bit out of breath
Yeah.
and they're just like, okay, how do I get to all of that?
That's a really, I can definitely relate to that for sure. I think a lot of people are living too busy of a life and it gets eventually too much.
Yeah.
So you meet women who are looking for something, I'm assuming.
Yes, and the cool thing about I say most of the work is done by my horses. Most of the people that come into my that do the clinic with me are very smart, very intuitive. Obviously, because they've chosen to try something different to find their path, and then they learn from each other. So there's a lot of time for discussion. There's times for reflection. There's times where a participant will share their knowledge and they support each other.
Right.
So it's also building a network of friends. And my clinics are not more than 6 people. I keep it very small because I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to talk, and to work with the horses closely. And really, it's about that exchange. Is so priceless. I mean, it's just amazing. And then the friendship that's developed from that. So yeah.
Could you take us through a workshop?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the reasons why horses is because they're very intuitive. So horses are prey animals, and that is why they have a sense of, they can feel our energy and they know where we're at. So we always start the session with kind of getting our presence and our energy back, and then it's always, it doesn't matter which workshop I do. It's always about relationship building is the first thing we do. So building a relationship with the other people in the clinic and building relationship with the horse. So nobody rides the horse. It is really on the grounds. I have obstacles that are built for whatever lesson we are working on. And there's about 2 sessions in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and it's for 2 days most of the time that I run. The cool thing is I don't know what my participants need, but my horses do. So I have one horses that is really in tune with chakras. Will be able to read people's energy. She's amazing. And then I have another horse that is really good at setting boundaries. And a lot of women that do come that do the clinic with me, I've had a hard time setting boundaries around their family. And so I'm just going to share a little story about
Please.
one of the sessions. So, we're working with Pixie, and Pixie's really good at showing people what boundaries she needs. So she pins her ears back and she kind of steps into the participant's space. So I asked the participant, I'm like, what do you think she's telling you? Well, she doesn't like that I'm too close to her, and that's why her ears are pinned. I'm like, good observation. So she moves away. And then guess what Pixie does? She steps again into her space. And I said, okay, what is she telling you? Well, again, she doesn't like the fact that I'm in her space. I'm like, time out. Whose space is she in now? Is it your space or her space? Because you've already taken 2 steps back. And then the realization is like, oh my gosh, I do this in my personal life. People push, I give. People push, I give. I'm like, okay, so now you need to tell Pixie that is enough. Mm-hmm. So you need to take your boundaries back. So she moved Pixie back the way that I showed her how to. And after that, for the rest of the session, Pixie never got into her boundaries. And that was so impactful for this person because she's like, I do this all the time in my personal life. People push and I take a step back and I take it. And and then I'm hoping that they let me be.
Right. What a perfect example to like show like a and then she's now self-aware.
Yeah, it was very for her it had a really big impact.
I imagine. Good morning. This is Kathy for Getting Chatty with Kathy, and I want to thank you all for joining me today. I have to say, now that we're into summer, I am very grateful for it. The sun was shining this weekend, and it was like warm, and I was just like, So, we have a very interesting guest here today. My husband actually recommended her for the show. Her name's Mary Frances, and she has a very... So when I'm around horses, I always kind of feel calm around them. They give like a really like good energy that you kind of like settle with, like we relax a bit.
That is so that's so true. Even if I have a bad day, just to go to the barn and just brush my horses brings me there. But one of the things is like we have a small heart, so our heart goes ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Horses have bigger hearts, and theirs goes ba-boom, ba-boom. Just that calms our whole energy down, and that's why they are so helpful to work with people that have addiction or trauma, or like they do such a good job at calming. So many times people tell me like, I want to do your clinic, but I'm afraid of horses, and I'm like, give it a try in the morning. Because that relationship building with the horse at the beginning will take care of all of that. I worked with a group of 3 young ladies. They came in with little voices. By the time they left, they found their voice, but they found also their space. And one of the things that I always ask, and they were scared of horses, but by the first hour they were done. And at the end of each session, I always ask people to pick a word that resonates with them of like, what did you learn during this session? And one of the little girls said, well, she was 13, and she says she picks choice. And I said, tell me more. She's like, I just found out that I have choices in life. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're 13 and you're realizing that, you do have choices in life. You have choices, good ones, bad ones, all of them. And that was, it was so cool to watch her. I almost get sometimes more than my clients because I just love to see people's growth, and I definitely get a lot out of that.
Well, it's interesting because I understand that like you work a full-time job on top of this, so it must in your spare time bring you a lot of joy.
It does. It fills my cup. Yes. Yeah. It's one time I did a Mother's Day, so it was mothers and daughters. And I had a teenager that showed up with her mom, and she had had a good night the night before.
Oh no.
And wasn't really feeling it, and the phone. And so one of the things I always ask is, I'm the only one that is allowed a phone in the arena. I will take pictures, put your phone away. And then I had set up crafts after where they would paint their word that, resonated with them. They stayed an hour and a half after I was done the session. Never once did that teenager take that phone out. She was so present with her mom and had such a good connection with the horse, her mom. It was so cool to watch. So it does take kids away from all of us, from social media, from
take your blood pressure and shoot it right up, really. Like
pretty much, yes. Yeah.
For me at least. Typos and everything.
No, and just to be able to park your phone for a day or 2 days. And and I sometimes run into people that have come to the session and they'll say, if I hadn't worked with you, I don't know if I could work with this person. That person is like this horse, and now I can respect them because I understand where they're coming from. I'm like, that's good. Like, it's so cool to get some feedback after the sessions. Yeah.
See it in work in action kind of thing. So you were mentioning there's 3 components that you learned over the years. So the first was just to be a coach. You took coach training, and I shouldn't say just. That's like a lot, right, in its own. And how did that resonate? Like, so did you work with people to get to a goal that they wanted, or a transition in life? What was kind of that, and then how did it layer with the next 2 things that you studied?
So the goal, the coaching is, people setting up personal goals or work goals. And what I found in the coaching was always one-on-one. And I'm like, okay, this is good, but when there's a community around your goal, it's stronger.
Yeah.
And so that's what the horses kind of brought, is that not only a community, but also when you work in the arena with the horses, you get your behaviors, the horses will react.
Mm.
So sometimes in a coaching session, you can say, well, if you behave this way, could be the problem where you're having issues in certain relationship. I don't have to say that in the arena. My horses will show them that.
Oh, wow.
And then we can debrief about, how does that look like in your personal life? They see it.
Right.
And two, there's that community of 6 people together, where it keeps them a little bit more accountable as far as the goals that they've set for themselves. So that's why I don't mind the coaching, but I like the community that the horse business that I've created brings together. And then the third component is that Enneagram stuff.
Yes.
Which I love. If anybody's listening and you have not done your Enneagram, just Google it. It's really cool. But again, it's about understanding yourself better. What motivates you? Why do you act a certain way? So I'm a 2, and a 2 Enneagram is a helper. Totally makes sense why I do the business I do.
Yeah.
Because it's what,
helping.
It fills my cup. But when we understand why we behave a certain way based on our motivation, it's just getting to know each other better. But it's so important to get to know ourselves so we can decide, what do we want for the future? And that's the part that I love the most about the 3 thing is, yes, the coaching is there, but there's that seeing it in the moment with the horses. Because when you work in the arena with the horse, they will react in certain ways that you can't ignore.
It's very reflective.
It is very reflective, yeah.
Wow, that's such a cool way of, I would have never envisioned, it almost feels like therapy in a way but you're seeing yourself in the animals or something like that. I don't know.
Yes, because the horses will react.
Right.
A lot of time if you're working with someone and you may not have the best working relationship, or your communication can be maybe assertive. Let's use that for example. People have learned to handle your assertive. But when you work with the horses, they're going to say whoa.
Yeah. And my personality is in this too.
Yes, exactly. And the way that you're speaking to me or not speaking to me, it's just, there's no other ways that you can learn that. Because as adults, we've learned to adjust to people's personality. Horses will show you what you are and how you're showing up in the moment. They're not judging you. They're just saying, this is what...
I'm aware.
Yeah, very aware.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So have you just had that, connection with horses your whole life? So that's helped you?
Yes. I started horseback riding when I was probably 9 years old.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
And it's always been part of my life. But I didn't realize how intuitive horses were until we had one of our horses that got injured.
Ouch.
And in the past, for me, was always I had a horse, I rode it. It was a tool to, it was something that I took from them. I've never had the reflection of how much they could give back to me as far as the emotional side. And when Pixie got hurt, I remember my daughter called me and she's like, Mom, she won't let me take care of her scab. And I'm like, just tie her up. Really, she's a horse, just tie her up. Well, she almost broke all the chains. So I drove to the barn and I started talking to Pixie and I said, hey, Pixie, we have no choice. She put her head in my shoulder and stopped moving. And I was
she just wanted comfort.
Yeah. And compassion. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not just an animal that you ride. This actually has a lot of feeling, intuition. That was my first realization of how intuitive a horse was, how much they could connect with our souls. And then from then on, I was more curious about, I've taken some courses on how to massage my horses. I've taken courses on how to release stress from my horses. So a couple of years ago, I have a friend that lost her husband. And I was just kind of going through my course. And I said, come to the barn with me and I'll practice some of my skill. Right. And then the things that my horses were doing to support her. And when we talk about chakras, she was her jacket where her heart is was all wet. And she's like, does she do this all the time? I'm like, no, she can read that your heart is broken. And so we kind of did a lot. And then a year later, she's like, hey, I want to do a session for widowers. So we did that. So we had 12 women that had lost their spouse and came to the session. So she did some group work, and then I took the other half of the group and we did some work with the horses. Guess what? My horses, all they did was get hugged and get some of that release and some of that loved, and that was their day. But they were exhausted after because they have taken all that energy. And I'm like, I got to find a way that after participants come, that I can help my horses release some of that energy.
Yeah.
So I've taken some courses on how to release their energy.
Oh.
Yeah, because if I don't take care of them, they won't be able to take care of us. So so I spend a lot of time doing that too.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love when people find something and they like dig into it and like make it available for like those people that need it so much. What a wonderful thing. See, Regina, there's so many cool things that are constantly going on in the city, and I just hope that all of you guys take the time to like hear these stories so that you're aware of it, and then maybe you can tell somebody else about it so that they can come. I really think that that's a really powerful thing that you're offering to people. So what do you want to do with the going forward? Are you hoping to grow your business? Are you hoping to introduce it to more people, less people? What's your goal?
So the goal for the short term is I'm going to keep doing what I do. So I do about 2 sessions per summer.
Nice.
I'm a little bit backed up right now because I have an injured horse and she comes first. So so there's probably going to be 1 session in the fall this year because she'll need about 3 months to get healthy again. So I'll do 1 in the fall. It's I rarely say no. Sometimes I will have a mom call me and say, hey, my daughter's struggling there's bullying at the school, and I'm like, yeah, bring her over. So I rarely say no to session because when people do need it, I want to be able to offer it. I do like doing it better in the summer because it's cold in the winter and I'm getting old. But as far as growing the business, I think that when there's a need, I will offer the clinics and continue that way until I'm about 7 years away from retirement, and there will be more after I retire from the full-time job you were talking about.
That'd be wonderful, right? Do your real job then.
Yeah, do the fun one. But yeah, so if anybody's interested or want to know more, they can always give me a call at 306-551-0984. Like I said, I rarely say no, and just because it's important. Mental health is so important today, and I find that what I do in the arena with my horses, it really helps people's mental health. So I'm not very good at saying no.
Well, maybe you need to take one of those boundary things.
Yes.
Tell me, so COVID, how did people coming out of COVID, could you tell that lots of us were scarred from the events? Lots more people, I'm assuming, need help?
Yes. I would say there's also more teenagers that need help. So the going back to school, I did have a couple of moms reaching out and say, hey, my daughter's going back to school, anxious about it. So I did run a session for a few kids that were going back to school and anxious about that. Definitely COVID has had an impact on people's mental health. I think I wouldn't be the only one saying that. And it's how do we find ourselves again? How do we find our path again? Because I think we can all come out of it, but we got to ask for help. Yeah. If we're struggling, I'm lucky enough that when I'm having a hard day, I can go to the barn and really decompress.
That's your tool in your tool belt.
Yes, I have those horses, but that's why I share what I have, because I do think that we need it. And we also need to spend a little bit less time on social media, more time connecting.
Yes.
I think that's super important. And
And that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's so weird. The other day, my daughter wanted to have a play date with her friends. So Nora, she was, during COVID, it was grade 1 for her. And she's in French immersion. So it was she couldn't read French yet because they weren't there. And they don't teach you English reading until actually grade 3. So there she is for COVID, can't read anything on the screens. And they were really, I think, isolated at a key age where they needed to be like playing and engaging with other kids. So fast forward to like now, and I was like, you need to just call Matilda and make a play date with her. What's the phone number? Oh, I don't want to call her mom. I'm like, no, you're going to have to make these plans yourself now. You're old enough to do that. But I think that like the skills were taken away during that time that like these poor kids needed. So now I'm trying to like push them onto her a little, just to be like, it's okay to pick up the phone and make a date. Like that's actually what that phone in your hand's for. It's not to watch TikTok videos all day long.
And I think not just our kids, but ourselves, we lost a little bit of those social skills. Like, people don't go to people's house and just hang out. I mean, we text each other. Mm-hmm. We don't even call each other anymore. So we're more connected than ever. And yes, we're more disconnected than ever.
Yeah, in a more unhealthy way, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, it's kind of sad. And, you know, and people, like, so you talk about your daughter in grade 1. Even the people that went to high school missed their first, or university. So one of my daughter was in university during COVID, and she was taking 5 classes in our basement.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, babe, this isn't good for your mental health. Like, and she's like, no, I'm going crazy. I'm like, you need to drop some classes.
Yeah,
you
can't do that.
You can't do that. Like, it's just
even
not a healthy way.
On a regular is a lot,
yeah.
right?
So we did pull back on some of her classes, and yes, she'll take an extra year to graduate, but at the end of the day, mental health is more important than getting that piece of paper in her hands right away. So yeah, I think we need to, and I don't want to judge either, but you know, you go into a restaurant and so often kids are sitting in front of their phone and parents are on their phone. You know, one of the things, like, I have a 29-year-old and a 24-year-old, and we still hang out a lot, but we played a lot of board games as kids with the kids, like, and
connecting with them.
And still to the day, like, board games, if you guys have board games at home, take them out.
That's such a good idea and great suggestion. I have like this plan for the summer. My girls don't know it, but the Wi-Fi is going away.
Nice.
And we're gonna just like take it in, because like I am tired of fighting over like screen time and all that sort of stuff when we should be connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We took Netflix away for the summer, because I said to my daughter, like, really, it's nice outside. We have bikes.
There's no reason to be inside.
She got a paddle board for Christmas, so I paddle board. So I'm like, we're gonna go paddle boarding. Let's take advantage of. Summer is short already, so let's take advantage of it and not stay in front of a screen and get out there and connect.
Yeah. We have the winter to like be a hermit. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming and doing what you're doing. It's amazing that people have someone in their community that they can reach out to, that can like be empathetic, plus like so like sharing such a wonderful thing. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Everybody out there, you take care. Bye now. 17 minutes. It was perfect because I did it 10 before. I didn't even look at it. I was like, I hope this is okay.